first I had to wear my Vanderbilt gear because we talked about this. We've been talking about this Bama thing for a while, but we finally got y'all this year, so I just had to show you.
Yeah, respect, respect.
I gotta ask you though, man, it's been such a long journey for you from, My Josephine to now, and I'm sure you learned all type of film techniques and all these processes, but this film had to be different. I mean, with technology and
Mhm.
everything else, like I don't recall a lot of special effects and Bill Street and stuff. How 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 much will this film add to your skill set as you go on as a filmmaker now that you've done this type of project?
Yeah, it's interesting that we try to find a way to bend this process to the way we make movies, because this technology is so new that you can break it, but like break it in a good way. You can sort of like it's almost like you walk into an auto body shop, and rather than building the cars that are there, you take all the pieces and build the car that you want to make. But the biggest thing, because in Underground Railroad, we actually had quite a few visual effects, but they're the kind that are hidden. Working in this way where everything is a creation, the thing it had to open up for us is we're used to just, you know, getting everything in front of the camera and then capturing an image. It's all about capture, about not having control. This process, you have control over everything. So how do you create situations where you have these spontaneous moments of capture? Um, the biggest lesson or skill or tool that we're going to take from this technology is in pre-production. It's incredible how much of the environment, the lighting, you can really sort of like pre-game, just really be prepared, before you actually get to set. And I know that the way live action filmmakers are using these tools right now is exactly that way. Greg Fraser, the DP on Dune, and Matt Reeves are the two people who I know have used this to sort of like set up their shots way beforehand, before the sets are even built. And in the case of Greg, to really figure out the lighting, especially when you're in a difficult environment like the desert. So I think we'll take a lot of those things too. And our production designer, Mark Freeberg, he actually used this to like build out the whole film. And I'm almost certain that, like something like Bill Street, we had to do all of that, like with these like actual like styrofoam models, like figuring out how we're going to build all those sets, whereas now we use technology to just do it, and then we can walk in it, in VR goggles. It used to be that you build a set and you put your iPhone in the set and you're sort of like looking down the hallway, because it's such a small camera. Now we can literally put on the goggles and be standing in it.
Well, I also got to ask you about the talent you've been working with. I know you work with some great casting directors, and casting is not, always everything that
Mm-hmm.
you're doing. But I mean, when you look at Jarrell Jerome, who's killing it this year, should be, nominated. And you look at Ashton and all these people, Regina King, and now you got Aaron and Kelvin Harrison and Blue Ivy. Like, how? What about you as a director? Do you try to appeal to like this talent that
Mm.
because I look at that as like a coach working with team. Like, how do you interact with talent that makes that partnership, that synergy go that you could just see these
Yeah.
key ways and everybody take off?
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I never thought of myself when I first came into filmmaking and film school as an actor's director. I just thought of myself as a writer who used the camera. But I love working with the cast, man. They really love it, and it's been something that as I've made more work, I've gotten more and more comfortable with it. I think Moonlight was kind of like a breakthrough for me, and this idea of having a principle, which is this idea of having this energy in the actor's eyes and really just believing in that, across the entire cast, and then now moving into this where the actors can only use their voice, but they also have total freedom where the scene can become anything. I don't know. I've gotten to a point where it's one of my favorite parts of the process. And to go back to your earlier question about what we take from the technology, the biggest barrier was we've also evolved to where the camera is sort of motivated. It's directly in relationship to what the actors are doing, the feeling of what the actors are doing, the texture. And that was something that we had to figure out a way. How do we create that in an organic way in this process? But I think the actors it's the whole reason, that these movies, these pieces of art that we make work. And so you have to like respect them, but also just really find a way to be one with what it is they're doing.
Why are you following us?
I was hoping to find my pride.
What happened to them?
The outsiders happened. A few of us got away, but you're the only other lions I've seen. You two better keep moving.
Wait, please. My name is Taka, son of Obasi. I know what it's like to lose everything. Come with us. We can help you.
I don't need any help.
But you don't have anyone.
She does indeed have someone. Thank you very much.
That's Zazu. Don't eat him.
You heard her. Do not eat me. As a recent addition to the King's Royal Guard, I must kindly ask you both to move on. Thank you for stopping by.
Your king hired a bird to protect you.
How high can you fly?
Also talk about partnerships. Congratulations. Now it's two directors in the house.
Yeah.
How do y'all collaborate mentally? Y'all talk about each other's projects, or like how does that work as having a partner as a director?
Yeah, it's cool, man, because directing is directing movies to feature films, it's a very strange thing, and it makes you a very strange person. And it's kind of nice when the other person in the household recognizes when you're being that strange version of yourself and can give you the grace. And that goes both ways. I think as creatives, we're kind of like a sounding board, but we're really good about only coming to the other person when we need it. And so I'm not reading every draft of what she's doing. She's not reading every draft of what I'm doing. But I do remember us making Bill Street and in The Farewell at sort of similar times. And the process of us watching each other's cuts of those movies was really wonderful. There's a couple things that Lulu gave notes on that no one else had given, and a couple things in The Farewell that I think I gave notes on that no one else had given. So it's a cool thing, but two directors, man, you gotta be careful about the energy sometimes.
I gotta ask you about the mythology of Mufasa's story, the Lion King story, the Lion Prince going back to Sundiata and Mali. This story play out in Zamunda with Coming to America. You see it in Wakanda. How much did you get into the mythology of this whole story about the unwilling king, the unwilling prince to become king as you got into this project? How deep did you dive into that?
I dove a little bit deep, but what I was moved by the most was this idea that even the unwilling prince, like the cat who was not meant to be a prince, the cat who was meant to just, sort of live over here on the other side of the tracks for his entire life, who was not allowed to even believe that he could acquire the skills, to become prince or king. Even aside from that, to be a leader of people, to be of any sort of value. I was really moved and interested in that, especially because we had already seen him exhibit, all those qualities. And I think because of that, we assumed, because everything we've ever been taught about how people come to be that person is through lineage, through bloodline, which the translation is through privilege. And I love that the writer Jeff Nathanson had sort of recontextualized that and said, no, this privilege, we're taking that off the table. This is how this person earned and acquired these skills. And, I remember when the teaser for this movie first released, this young woman commented on my Instagram page and said, I work with a nonprofit that helps kids in the foster care system. And I never imagined a character like Mufasa could be a product of the foster care system. But you think of Eshe, she is like the best foster mom, any person could ever have. And because of that, she sets him on this path to achieve, all these things, to acquire all this knowledge and all these skills, and then to ultimately be someone who's capable of being a leader. I thought that was really wonderful, and that was the driving force.
And my last question, and this is just for the future filmmakers, the future writers and directors, like how important was it for you to, like, I know you was, studying this at Florida State, but when you really completed your first script and you really put, My Josephine in the can, how important was it for you to complete that first project, to get out your theoretical mind of I'm a filmmaker say like, okay, now I've done it. Like how important was
Yeah,
it?
you know what? It was super important. And I'm actually going to step away from my Josephine. I'm going to go to Medicine for Melancholy, which is this super low budget movie that I made with
2008.
my friends in, yeah, 2008. And I'll go to that one because that was at a moment in my life where I thought I wasn't going to ultimately become a filmmaker because I didn't have any money, didn't have any access. And I really thought people would ask me, what do you do? And I would say I'm a filmmaker. And they would say, well, what have you done? And I remember my homeboy Justin Barber, who was working with the director Wes Ball, we all went to film school together, said, hey, I got $13,000. And I was like, he's like, can you make a movie for that? And I knew the movie was going to be very rough around the edges and all those different things, but I also knew I had to make something. And so I took everything in my life at that moment, you know, the apartment, the aquarium tanks, the bikes, I just put all that stuff into a movie of what it felt like to me to be young and black in San Francisco at that time. And I just made it. And man, when I tell you that that decision changed everything, I mean, just changed everything. Yeah, I'll say it in the simplest terms. Jeremy Kleiner at Plan B saw that film in 2008. And then 8 years later, you know, we were premiering Moonlight at the Telluride Film Festival. If I don't make that movie, which I love, there are kids, young people who find that movie after having seen Moonlight and Bill Street, and they'll write these letterbox reviews and be like, how the hell did this cat make Moonlight? This movie's busted. And I'm like, that cat would not have made Moonlight without the experience of making this movie. That's both in the things I learned in making it and the doors it opened. So I think you have to make stuff, and you can't be afraid to make something that's not perfect. You can't be afraid to make something that's not great.
Yeah. Well, you're making great stuff now, brother. And I appreciate all the time. And
Appreciate it.
I need that BLACKTREE TV. I need that BLACKTRee TV. I need that BLACKTRee TV. BLACKTRee TV.